Learn from my mistake. Are you tired of hearing the same old advice when it comes to real estate? Do you want to learn from the biggest and baddest mistakes in the industry? Then welcome to Learn from My Mistake, the podcast that brings you real estate professionals from all over, sharing the biggest blunders and how to avoid them. I'm one of your hosts, Jake Remillard, and I'm joined by my partner, Marie Baginski. We're here to give you the inside scoop on what not to do in the real estate game. From brokers to investors, we've got it all. We're not just here to tell you about our guest failures, though. We're here to help you learn from them so you can make the right moves when it counts. So buckle up and get ready to hear some juicy stories and expert advice you won't find anywhere else. This is Learn from My Mistake. New episodes drop every week. Don't miss out. Learn from my.
Hey, what is going on, everybody?
Welcome.
Aloha.
Marie, you usually jump right in and introduce everybody, but I'm going to take the lead today. So,
Yes, please.
if you're joining us live, what's going on? Jake Remillard. I'm here with my partner Marie Baginski and Ammon Brimhall. We're really excited to have you on today. We've all got kind of some different levels of real estate experience. And I just want to I'm going to kick it over to Marie real quick if you want to say anything to everybody, and then we'll go ahead and have you just kind of introduce yourself and tell everybody why they should care what you have to say.
Yeah, I'm super excited to bring on Ammon. I've, like I said, met you at several events, and although you claim to be a recluse, you are actually very personable and outgoing when you're meeting someone. And I love you. You have a great personality, and you're super knowledgeable and have helped me navigate my first sub-2 deal many years ago. So it was amazing working with you, and I'm glad to bring you on. So just tell everybody a little bit about yourself, your background, and particularly how you started in real estate.
Well, thank you. You're super kind. So I always consider it lucky if somebody will deal with me a second time after they dealt with me the first. So it's a good thing. Yeah. So my story is I years ago dropped out of college, probably for the wrong reasons. I won't go into that story, but I just dropped out of college. I started framing. So I'm framing in Utah in the winter. It's nice and cold and frozen. And me and my foreman and the owner of the company, we decided to go to a seminar. And I'd already read the book Rich Dad Poor Dad. I think that's what like almost everybody has in common is it's just such a great book for giving you the kind of how it works, how wealth creation is done. Just such a simple story, but such a powerful one. So anyway, so the seminar company comes through and they say, hey, we'll show you all these ways of making a ton of money. And I saw the real estate guy. And so I don't know if anybody remembers the old Russ Whitney, from forever ago, but that's who I purchased the program from. So this is like early 2000s, right? So I'm in my early 20s and I'm like, oh, this is incredible. And so I do the crazy thing. Somehow I convince my family to lend me like 20 grand to pay for these, these seminars and whatnot. And so they give it to me. And so I attend these seminars and that's really where it started. And that's really where it began. And that's how I got into it. And so, I can keep going on the story for a while, but it took me a while. It took me a year to do my first deal. We made $60,000. I split that. I had to JV it because I had absolutely no cash. You always start no cash, no experience. My parents weren't big business gurus, nothing. So I'm just green as green can be. Worked my can off for that year, got that $60,000 flip, gave 30 to my partner, 30 for me. And then from there, I started doing real estate. So buying, fixing, flipping, wholesaling, landlording, creative financing, tax liens. Anything in the residential world, a little bit in the commercial, but started from there and just have been doing it since, and then got into education too.
So back up just a little bit and tell us, because you briefly mentioned it and then moved on real quick about it took you a long time to get that first deal. So how long before you started your first seminar or, that paid that 20 grand to actually closing on a deal?
It was 1 year, almost exactly.
1 year. Okay.
Yeah, almost exactly 1 year. Yeah. So no, it was really tough. And it's crazy. So, it's funny, like you said, this is, this doesn't necessarily have to be a PG audience, but I'm a pretty PG dude, right? So I'm totally like a family man, go to church every Sunday kind of a guy and whatever. But so I'd done this thing thinking, man, God will guide me, he'll help me out. So I get 6 months into this And I mean, I know nothing. Like, I don't know how real estate commissions work. I've never had a loan in my life. Like, I'm a 22-year-old wet behind the ears. I mean, if I shave this, what I have here, I look fairly young, but back in the day, like, I looked like I was 16, right? 16, 6'1", 148 pounds at 6'1". I mean, just ridiculously look young, like not even like no presence whatsoever. But just started out there. 6 months into it, I was like, okay, I've spent a lot of money, and I told my family I'd have the money back by now. And I'm like, I don't have the money back by now. Like, what am I going to do? Like, freaking out. Like, I have kids, and I'm stressing out having to pay bills. And just remember sitting there and just, again, I do believe in God very much. And this little voice comes and just like, well, Ammon, you've been at it for 6 months. How much have you learned? And I was like, well, I learned a ton. Like, I've really come a long ways. I know a lot more about real estate than I did before. And so, like, this next question, right? And some people say it's not God, but it's just kind of a personal question. Like, well, what if you kept at it for 6 more months? And I was like, well, I'd probably do a deal. And then this little thought was, well, why not keep going? Right? Yeah. Why not be patient? And I was like, you know what? That's good advice. I'm going to take that advice. And then I just like that. I let go of the stress and got out there. And, if we start talking about some of my, not necessarily failures, but successes, you have to ask me about stamping. That was like one of my things that really got me out of the rut and into defining things. But I just worked hard for that next 6 months, put in my 10 to 15 hours a week when I had time. Sometimes I didn't because I had to pay bills, but I was just consistent. And then I found that killer deal, and I'd worked hard enough, long enough that I knew it was a deal. It wasn't a question. I was like, that's a deal, and like, how you get buck fever. If any of you hunt and like you've got the rifle and there's the deer and you about pee your pants and your jaw drops, you start shaking, you can't do anything. That's me. I'm like, oh, it's like a real deal. Oh my God, they exist. So I was like, so I called this guy up, this investor, and I said, dude, I think I found a deal. And within like 10 minutes, he's like, oh yeah, you found a deal. He's like, if you don't do it, I want it. And I said, look, let's split it 50-50. And he's like, okay, I'll do it. And so that's how I raised the money. I didn't have the money. I still didn't have the money. I still just poor as a church mouse and getting behind every month. And he said, okay, we'll do it. And so that's how we got it done. And the 30 grand just paid my bills off. I didn't get ahead. I just barely got my nose just a little bit further above water. But anyway, that was it took a year.
It was the learning curve.
Yeah.
That 30 grand. Yeah. But
that perseverance, like that first year, I think is so many people to go back to the name of the show, like the mistake and the F up is like, that first year can just go in such a positive way, or it can go in a really negative way. And I think the overwhelming majority of people that get into real estate that first year goes more towards the negative way. And it's great. I think that you had that, whatever, if it was the God or if it was the internal voice that told you, like, what if you just went and kept going for like 6 more months? I think the biggest mistake I've heard so many people make is not doing that, going back to the W-2 or going back and just like taking that step back because they're like, it's just not working. Perseverance is so important.
Yeah, it is. And that is probably the biggest mistake. And look, I mean, most people get into this through some kind of an expensive program like I did. And that's what hits us, right? Is we're thinking about that. We're thinking about that big bill that's coming due, those payments that are coming due. And it's a really big stress on us. We can't wait to get that taken care of. And it's just, if you just think back and you're like, look, I've mastered something in my life pretty amazing. So anybody listening to this, you probably have some kind of a career, or you're in some kind of a relationship, or you've done something that really took time and years and effort, and you succeeded at it, right? You made it. And so if you say, well, wait a minute, everything that develops into something worthwhile takes time to develop. Let's take the pressure off. I don't have to do a deal this week. Let's take the pressure off. I don't have to compare myself to somebody else who's making more money, who's moving faster. There are a lot of investors who are a lot wealthier than I am, right? Period. The end. But I don't care. Like, I'm raising my family. I don't want to start over. So I'm not as risky as some people are. They'll leverage all the way out. And I'm like, I don't want to. I have no intention of starting over. So I'm a little more cautious, and who cares? So if you can get that weight off your shoulder, get that pride out of your way, and just say, all right, I just need to do my first deal. And like I say, keep that consistency. You'll get it figured out. You really will. You'll nail it. So, but yeah, so that's how I got started. And I had to work hard to make a list of mistakes, because I don't normally sit around and think about, what are my big mistakes. But I did make a list.
I love this. I
think you're the first guest. We've had over 20, I think, and you're the first that's come with a pre-prepared list. That's nice.
Well, I was like, well, they want me to talk about my mess ups. I was like, well, what are those? Like, I had to sit for a minute. I was like, I better get a paper out, because I wouldn't even remember these off the top of my head, So I did. I made a list there. I got it all ready.
I love it. All right, so let's start. If you were to prioritize them, what was the biggest one? Maybe like financially. Let's start there, because the money is like easily measurable, right? So like, which one maybe hit the hardest financially.
Okay, yeah, that's a good one because I was trying to prioritize, and I'm like, I don't know how you prioritize these, but I learned something about people, and that is some people look dishonest not because they are dishonest, but because they accidentally work themselves into a tough corner, and getting out is just messy, right? Period. And that's what happened to me, right? I consider myself an honest guy, a good guy, but I bought this house. And it had some cracks in the foundation. This is in the beginning when I don't really understand foundations or challenges that pop up with those. And it was a pretty big crack. So I called a contractor, and he came and said, Ammon, the house has been here for decades. I don't see any big movement anymore. It's probably settled. You're fine. Don't even worry about it. So I called another contractor. He said kind of the same thing. And so I was at the moment of closing on this thing, I had the earnest money down. And at this point, you're new. You're so terrified of every little element. Am I going to lose $1 here? Is that not going to work out? What's going on? So right towards the end, the one contractor who said it was probably fine said, well, I would be careful. I think that crack's bad. And I was like, oh man, at the last minute, he changed his opinion. I was like, it's fine. It's been there a long time. I'm going to take the first guy's opinion. So fix the house up, get it ready, put it up for sale. And so that was my first mistake is you don't mess with foundations, and you don't just get a general contractor. You get a real foundation guy that really knows what the hell they're talking about. And when you have, the crack was that big. It was not a small crack, going through the middle of the house. So you don't.
So that big for anyone who can't see, that was like 3 inches or something that you just showed us. It was a pretty decent size crack.
Yeah. Yeah, because you guys know, you've been in these houses, they have little hairline cracks all over. Who cares? Hairline cracks, nobody cares. It's just concrete. But 3-inch crack, but you couldn't see it anywhere else in the house. The doors opened and the windows opened. So I thought, it's settled. I kind of took their opinions. And that was the first mistake. And I've learned since, if you have any question on any problem, you get a specialist in there to tell you what's really going on. So that was my first mistake. And then we fixed it up. We go to sell it. And I didn't disclose. Now, I didn't disclose, not because I was like, this is where it's like, I wasn't trying to lie. I wasn't trying to be dishonest, but I was like, well, I talked to a contractor. He said it was all right. The other guy said, but he did it at the end. And anyway, whatever my excuses were, I didn't disclose. Yeah. And I should have. I just should have. And so a couple years later, I get a phone call like, hey, we opened our closet. And there's like a 1/2-inch crack in the corner, right? 1/2-inch crack, just boom, big. And so, I got a hold of my attorney. He's like, it could go either way. You could actually win this based on the fact that they had an inspection period and they had all this kind of thing. And he said, but then you might not win this. But here's the thing. I did this right. I was like, look, my bad. I didn't really get a specialist, and I didn't disclose my problem. So I paid $25,000 to fix that. That was a $25,000 problem.
Wow.
So it hurt. And I still, at that point, I still wasn't really flush with a lot of cash. I was doing well. I was paying my bills, but it's not like I had $25,000 sitting around. I didn't have that. So that one hurt. And that one, I also learned why some people become dishonest. When the pressure gets too high, the higher the pressure, the more likely you are to kind of, abandon your values. But I kept it straight, feel good about that. But yeah, I should have gotten the right inspection. I should have disclosed. And that one was like a kick to the nuts. That one just did not feel good.
I remember my first, the first time you have that disclosure statement put in front of you on your first flip, when you go in and these houses like inside and out way more than any traditional homeowner is ever going to know about these houses. That first disclosure statement, you're like, do I tell them every little detail, or like, where do I draw the line? So I think that's, a mistake that a lot of people probably would have easily succumbed to, with the best of intentions, not wanting to over disclose, not wanting to under disclose, just kind of getting tied up in the early stages of being in real estate.
Yeah, it's hard to know. It's hard to know what should I share, what should I? Yeah, sorry, go ahead, Marie.
Yeah, no, well, and I love that you said, like, with any type of issue, right, like, to get the expert involved, because we've kind of gotten lackadaisical where now we've been flipping for a while. I have a general contractor I've been working with for a long time, so I don't normally do a home inspection. We just walk through with the contractor. We can easily see, right? Because I'm like, what am I going to pay for a home inspection for? They're going to tell me an outlet is broken or this or that, and I don't care. I'm renovating the whole place. But on our most recent flip, the roof was bad, and we didn't realize it because we just, the contractor did kind of a quick peek, and he was like, yeah, it looks fine. The shingles are fine. But part of our renovation included putting a new AC on the roof. And just from them walking on the roof was actually so bad that then it started cracking all these shingles and stuff. And we had to end up doing a complete roof replacement. And if we knew that in the beginning, we would have tried to renegotiate, pay less, whatever. So all of a sudden we got this extra $35,000 bill to replace the roof because that came up in the inspection on the sales side. So right, that's like, get a specialist in there, right? Don't just trust your GC to walk through with you, but like roofs, like HVAC, foundations, right? Like these are major things that you really want an expert specialist for.
Yeah. No, I have become like paranoid in that first, not paranoid, but just really thorough, and like still most like, and this is probably true for you too, Marie. And it's like, most of the time it's still just me walking through with the general, but I'm looking for that. Like I get in the attic and walk the full length of the attic, right? I will get in the crawl space and like crawl the whole crawl space, and that's really nasty. That's no fun. But I bought this really cool tool. You know, it's got a screen, and then you drill a hole, and you can put the camera in the wall, and it shows you, it has a light on it, right? It's just, you know, it's like you get a cheap one for 60, 70 bucks or whatever. But when I go in, I go crazy with all this stuff, and I look at it, and most of the time you don't need a specialist, right? And that's, you know, if you're new to this, don't think like every house you have to hire like 5 specialists, because then you go bankrupt. You know, just doing your diligence. But go through it, and then if there's a question, because that was another one of my stories where a floor was spongy and I didn't check it. We ended up having to tear out the joists were on the dirt. We tore out all the joists, and we actually drove a skid steer into the house, and we excavated the living room, like literally through the wall.
Wow.
It was crazy. And on that one, we broke even. We didn't lose anything, but we broke even on that particular house. But again, it's just like the house that had the crack. Had I at that time said, wait a minute, that's spongy, if I just got my little camera and looked down there, I would have found it. So it's not like these are mistakes that would have hit me that I couldn't have found. These were ones that I learned. These were definitely my mistakes, not just stuff that happens to me. And so by just being thorough in that first walkthrough, and then taking anything that looks scary and getting that specialist, you know, you come out fine. You know, you'll be fine. So
interesting. So I'm wondering, on your list, do you have anything related to like bad partners, or like what other big aha moments? Because I want to hear like not just the mistake, but I also want to hear like, so now what do you do differently? Like what has changed? Like, has it made a dramatic impact in your business because of this mistake?
Yeah. So, I mean, certainly from the ones from before, you can, like what we just talked about. I mean, the real takeaway, the dramatic difference isn't that dramatic. It's very simple, right? And that one is just walk everything thoroughly. If you have any question whatsoever, get the specialist. And if you'll just adopt that and not be lazy about it, you'll be fine. That will save you a lot. I mean, that one's a really easy application. So I have no partner mistakes. So, because I don't have very many partners, I avoid them almost like the plague. Right. So if anybody says, Ammon, should I get a partner? I'm like, are you good at marriage? And if you are, then one wife is enough. So you don't need more. And so be very careful. So I've entered into very, very few partnerships. And anytime I do, it is so like incredibly spelled out what's expected of them and what's expected of me, and what happens if they fail, what happens if I fail, what happens if the deal goes south, that, you know, that there's just very little room for me to have conflicts with partners. And so it's always very, very, very structured. And there are some things like, I will not do a major rehab with a partner because I'm really nice. You guys all like me now, but let's start talking about details of a project, and I become an a-hole because I'm very like anal about stuff, and I hate it when it doesn't go my way because I worry. So I don't have any good partner flops for you.
So it sounds like maybe most of, if not all of the partnerships that you've done have been like maybe one-off, you know, quick JV partnerships or something where it was like a very short arrangement, no prolonged like business partnerships.
Yeah. I'm going to throw a mistake in there. I'm going to make up a mistake right now because I think it is a good mistake.
Let's hear it.
Bad mistake, but it's a good one to talk about. I do think that my fear of partnerships has kept me from making more money. And so what I would say is that the mistake is I haven't learned sooner how to set up more profitable partnerships. Meaning the ones I've done have been really well done. Like they had good boundaries, they had good clarity, and that's how I have a good partnership. And that worked out well. But but you grow when you're in teams, right? You grow when you have different talents and different people on board. And so I probably could have begun earlier saying, how can I find more ways to make more partnerships? How can I find more ways to connect with more people in safe, uplifting ways? Because there are some really incredible people that you can work with, really incredible partnerships. But it is true. I mean, if divorces are 50%, then bad partnerships are 90%. I mean, they could be tough. But if you learn how to form the right ones, you make a lot more money a lot faster and have a lot more fun. And so probably that's my mistake. I should have started working on learning how to be more deliberate getting into partnerships sooner.
I really like that awareness because, I mean, honestly, I think I don't know. A lot of people, when they start in this business, it's like, who do I trust? How do I know if I can trust this person? So I do believe that is like a limiting belief or a mindset shift that could drastically change, your future and of course your ability to make more money in the business. And also, you've actually developed now a really good structure. I think everyone that we've had on that talks about a bad partnership, it's specifically because the agreement didn't spell out what would happen if they didn't hold up their end of the bargain, or the agreement didn't talk about the deal going south. It only talked about the 50-50 split when everything went well, right?
Yeah.
So the fact that you've maybe come at it from a little bit more of a skeptical position has probably allowed you to like put in and develop like an ironclad like JV agreement that could now, if you're willing to partner, like could definitely propel you in the future, because you're like, no, I've thought about this through so anally that I know. And especially working with students, right? So, has that impacted your decision at all? Like hearing student stories, because you were coaching, I think you're still coaching, right?
I love to coach. I love to train. I have a blast teaching it. It's kind of a fun dynamic where I'm teaching and doing. So I really love it. I think when you first start out in the business, like I don't think I had the ability to set good boundaries or to maybe sniff out dishonesty. Like, I mean, just the years give you the ability to do that better. And so when I was younger, I think it was probably wise of me to be careful, who I partnered with and whatnot.
Absolutely.
And as I've gotten older, it was actually somebody called me who was a student. And I'm very I rarely do deals with students. I'm very, very careful about that. But he brought a deal. It was such an incredible deal. And he said, Ammon, I have no idea what to do. He says, do it with me. You can have a lot of the profits. I'm like, well, you cross a line from being a coach into doing a deal. It's a different personality, right? It's not a different personality, but there's a conflict of interest. As a coach, yeah. I tell you everything. I'm transparent. Now I move into a business deal. I have to protect my own interests. It's kind of, it creates a little bit of a challenge. So I kind of figured out, all right, let's cross this line a little bit. And that student, I was like, I just need to find ways to work with people better. And it worked out super well. We made $50,000 in just, a few weeks. We bought the property using my cash and just immediately sold it on the MLS. Great little technique. You buy them instead of assigning the contract. I make so much more to just buying the actual asset and then putting it on the MLS. Then I'm not squeezed in 2 weeks to take a contract. But anyway, time changing. But
so it's like a double close novation, except you're maybe not double close, but you're closing on it. And like you would do with the novation, you're listing it. You're actually closing on it and just doing a quick turnaround 2 week. Nice.
Yeah. Buy it, do nothing to it. But I know that coming from, the buyer emails, all they have are, quick buyers who are negotiating on price. If I get it to the MLS, the number of buyers is so much bigger. And then you have to do it yourself for mom and pops. You got the person who wants to move into it. You got all kinds of different people. And so you tend to get a higher margin. And so, that's all I would
nice.
Buy it and put it up there. And I mean, when you've been in the business a long time, you end up having more money than you can keep engaged, right? I mean, that just happens over time. It's like you have money, you have team members, you just don't have as many deals. It becomes the limiting factor. But so it's just a great way to get money occupied to make more. But that drove it. It was a good partnership. It was really a good move, and I set it up well, and it was good. I think, when you start out, again, it's just hard to know how to set good boundaries. It's hard to know who to trust. And here's the other thing. When you first start out, it feels, for most of us, I think this is true for 80% of us that start out. If you ask somebody like, well, hey, what if this fails? What are you going to do? Or, well, you're going to do this, aren't you? It feels like there's this inappropriate assumption that asking those questions is rude, right? Mm-hmm. It's like, if I ask the question, I'm almost doubting that person's character. You know, if I come, well, Marie, well, are you going to put up the money for, if I get the loan, are you going to put up the, the gap funding? And it almost feels like, well, that must be rude. I don't know if I can ask that. And so in our attempt to be polite and kind and courteous, we don't get out there and ask the tough questions. Same thing with contractors. In the beginning, I was, I had a hard time showing up and saying, what in the hell are you doing? Right.
Right.
But you have to learn to do that, because as a decent person going to church every Sunday, you don't walk up to somebody and say, what the hell are you doing?
Right.
But you learn really quickly, that's their language. If you don't walk up and say that, you don't get a straight answer and you don't move things forward. And so in those partnerships, you have to open up the tough conversations. You have to ask the tough questions, and they're not rude. They're important. They're not rude. It's how you maintain the friendship, right? That's how you make sure you remain friends for months, as you go and say, hey, I have a problem. Let's bring it up here. Let's put it on the table. There's the shit. There it is. Let's talk about it. And it's on the table. But again, in the beginning, you're like, well, that's not polite. That's not good. Wrong. The most polite thing you can do is bring the problem up, discuss it early, solve it early. Don't let it wait. Don't let it fester. And that's how you create good partnerships. Great books. So if you want something really applicable, get the book Boundaries. I love the book. It's incredible. Has nothing to do with real estate, but has everything to do with how to tell people no, how to set boundaries. I'm a great landlord, right? I owned rentals for a long time. I love that book. Another book from the religious perspective is like The Peace Giver. From the business perspective, it's called Leadership and Self-Deception. It's the same company. It's the same concepts. One, they just write more for a business audience, another one for a religious audience. But the concepts are the same. It's about, taking ownership and setting good boundaries. And so those are some really great books for overcoming that, getting into more partnerships. So.
I love that. I can see Jake making notes of those right now.
I'm actually just like pulling both of those books up.
They're incredible books. I love them. Now, fair warning. If you read the book Boundaries, half of you are going to read it and be like, "What's wrong with Ammon? Was he like mentally unstable when he was younger?" Like, this is obvious, right? This is like, duh. This is how you set a boundary. But that's my reaction. Half the people who read it are like, "Thanks, Ammon. That's awesome." And the other half are like, you didn't know how to do this before, right? But, you grow a lot emotionally. That's what you have to realize. You grow internally. Go ahead.
Yeah, no, the amazing thing with, I think, so many books that we read and in general is like, it's not always like, oh my God, this is rocket science. It's more like, well, duh, that's common sense. But also I wasn't doing that before I read the book, right? So it's like, it's just bringing it to your awareness of like, yeah, this is the next step for you. And no matter what it is, like, I know Jake, again, loves the E-Myth and he always talks about it. And it's like, of course, if you want to grow a business, you can't be the technician, the manager, the operator. You can't do all that, right? Yeah. But until you read it and you have like that aha moment of like, oh, this is how I do it. This is the next step. I honestly think most books we read are not like, they're only life-changing because we finally have that awareness and we get to actually use it and implement it.
We're finally prepared, kind of like when the student is ready, the master will appear.
Yes.
Yeah.
I love
it. No, and here's the funny thing. This is so weird. I don't know if this is true for both of you, but like I read the E-Myth years ago as well. But it's funny. It's not the business books that have made me better in business, right? It's the because I get the concepts, I get the business concepts, but if you aren't like if you lack self-confidence. And so you can't work with somebody, like you immediately think, well, they'll never work with me. Yeah. Well, then you can't apply the business principle because you don't see your own value, right? If you don't know how to deal with a really heavy conflict, like something pops up and you're really mad at the other person, if you don't know how to navigate that in a constructive way, if you turn to passive aggressiveness or whatever you learn from your family, well, then you're gonna have a hard time working through a rehab. And so one of the interesting realities, at least from my perspective, I don't know if I've ever had anybody confirm this, but it's almost like you grow in your ability to communicate, you grow in your ability to forgive, you grow in your ability to see your own value, you grow in your ability to just love and appreciate others. You grow in, and it's funny, to me, these are all kind of religious principles, but as you get better at each of those elements, forgiving and that kind of stuff, you actually become a better business person because it's
absolutely
better relating to your client. It's better relating to your, the people you work with on a deal, better relating to the sellers. And it just elevates you to a better business level. And so strangely enough, if you got really serious issues and internal problems, if you want to become a worthwhile business. And what I mean by worthwhile is like making money you can be proud of. There's lots of money you can make you're not proud of, really is. But if you want to make money you're proud of in the end, and you're like, man, that's a really good business, you got to work on yourself, like in those ways, which you don't have to call them religious. I do. But even if you're not religious, you can just work on those things.
It's the personal development aspect. It's definitely the personal development aspect of it.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
You're speaking my language because I'm literally at a 5-day personal development NLP training right now as a team leader, helping the new students come through and get rid of all their ish and their, childhood trauma so that they can be the best versions of themselves. So absolutely.
Amen. Yeah. I have, I don't know if this one's a mistake, but it's, I don't know if it is a mistake. Yeah, it is a mistake. I'll share this one too because it's right in the same line. So I can share.
You want to know the greatest thing about mistakes, Ammon? Each one of them is just to make you the better version of yourself. So, right? It's all, how did this happen for me, not to me? So it was a learning experience.
Yeah,
so
I overanalyzed.
This learning experience.
I way overanalyzed. Too anal. So, no, I actually, like when I started out, and I don't know how much sales training each of you has taken, but like I had all the sales training from all these different gurus and whatnot. So I was always trying to apply their principles. Mm-hmm. And then it took me like a lot of years before I finally a lot of people aren't going to agree with me on this, right? So a lot of people are going to want to throw rocks at me and just throw me off the podcast for this one. But I finally realized that most of the sales gurus, they're just scumbags. Like, honestly, they've got all these techniques on how to really manipulate, like persuading's good, but all these ways to kind of deceive your neighbor, make something look good that isn't good. Make something look exciting that isn't exciting. Make them get their emotions going to buy something that's subpar. Whereas then I'm like, you know what? If I use those techniques and it was my sister, I would feel bad because I wouldn't do that to my sister. Mm. And a lot of if you've read Stephen Covey's book, 7 Habits of Highly Successful People, he talks about the character ethic and the personality ethic. Character ethic is the old school. You need to be dependable. You need to be honorable. You need to be honest. And the personality ethic is you need to look honorable. You need to look honest to make the sale, right? Yeah. And there was a big shift in my business. I'm like, well, forget that. I'm going to be really, really just transparent, really open with people. And it's so much more. It's so much better. Like I do so much more business. And it's not that you can't make a lot of money the other way. There's a ton of money to be made. But now it's more organic. People trust me more. The agents trust me more. The wholesalers trust me more. I mean, I'm picking up a property. We just finished the contract today. It's $100,000 flip. It'll be a nice, quick little. It's a manufactured home that a guy put in. It's brand new. Just never finished it on 12 acres. It's a great little home. Well, the agent knows and trusts me. Like knows I'm going to do a good job. Knows I'm going to treat people right. Knows I'm going to disclose even the small details. And that it made the business fun. It made the business fun because I was treating sellers with more respect, treating buyers with more respect. I wasn't trying to hide crap or you kind of tuck it under the corners. And my mistake was believing that, that every guru is really worth listening to because they're not. They're not all worth listening to. Some of them are powerful and they're good salespeople, but they're not worth listening to. So be careful who you listen to. I mean,
I actually love that mistake, right? Again, just that awareness of, as you probably grown in your personal development journey and years of experience under your belt, like now, your bullshit meter or your bullshit radar is like, no, that's bullshit. Like, come on, right? Like when you were in your 20s and you're buying all these programs and you're like, I want to learn. You're almost going to take advice from anyone that's out there that once you see them on a stage or on an infomercial or, maybe a good Facebook ad nowadays, it's like, oh, they must know what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And in reality, it's like,
Yeah, it's sad. There's just a lot of, and I don't know. I mean, this is now philosophy stuff, but I think the unique selling proposition is honesty. Like I started giving, well, I don't know. I mean, I whatever. Point is, it's just there's a lot of manipulation out in the world, and so just be aware of it. A lot of people who will, who will tell you all the good stuff and not the bad stuff, which is why this podcast is great, right? You're hearing all the mistakes, and you hear things like losing 25 grand, and just be careful. I guess that's something too. As you hear the mistakes, it is a high stakes game. Stuff can happen to you. I've never had a title issue pop up, but I have somebody who bought a property, great deal, but the title company totally messed up. And it wasn't on purpose, but the title company messed up. So it's really, throwing a wrench in the works. And so this is a high risk game, but it's also a high profit game. And so you really can become wealthy in it. You really can make it. So don't let the mistakes keep you out of it. Just help them kind of refine your ability to deal with risk, refine your processes for, assessing that risk, and then use it to move forward, and you'll do great. It'll be a lot of fun. And by the way, you can overcome failures too, right? If something goes poorly and the deal goes south, you can overcome it, right? So it's really cool. So
awesome.
Yeah.
I love that, and I think that it's really powerful. The way you just kind of wrapped all of that up. I myself am definitely the junior of the three of us. Having been in real estate for about 2 years now, a little bit over. Really fortunate in a lot of the things that I've done. Just certainly made my mistakes along the way, right, as we all do in our early years. But I really resonate with what you were saying about being careful with who you're taking advice from, and not just assuming that the guru is right. I've purchased a lot of courses. I've invested a lot into the education and everything. And as I'm going through now and starting to lead teams and build out our sales processes, I've really put a lot of thought into what it is to make this sale, and what it is, especially because we're acquiring properties virtually. So completely over the phone, over the course of like 45 minutes, I'm trying to get a team of people to be able to get somebody else to know, and trust them enough to sell them a property. And I've looked at a few scripts and everything, and even as recently as like last night, I'm going through all of these things, and I found myself just taking out stuff from scripts that I've gotten from so many people that was just a lie. Like you'll get a lot of these scripts from people, and they're like, yeah, this will be the 30th property that we've purchased this month. And a lot of these people that get the script are like brand new, and they've never done a deal. So it's like, why would you tell somebody that? But there's just so much of that going on out there right now. So I love that you brought that up, and the fact that there's a lot of dishonesty. And if you can kind of eliminate that and just be honest with the other person on the other end of the phone, or that other contractor, that you're going to get so much farther from that. I think that's something that a lot of people need to hear in this industry right now.
Yeah, there are two ways to get rich. One is you just bamboozle and schmooze everybody to wealth, and it works. You can get incredibly wealthy that way, and there are a lot of powerful salespeople. And the other is, it's a little bit longer, a little bit more effort, but it's just called a reputation, right? And it's called, like, people know you, and when they see you, they know that you can look them in the eye at the grocery store, and then that trust grows a little bit and grows a little bit. But here's the thing: trust takes time. So you can't grow trust in a day. It takes time, and then because they have to see you in one environment and then another and another, and say, hey, that's a consistent person, or that's a consistent business. But once they do, suddenly that becomes an asset in your company, and then it becomes another asset. If you don't have that asset, what you have to have is the next sales campaign that says, all right, we gotta hoodwink a whole other group that don't even know who we are. And that's, you fill the funnel, you shake the funnel out, and you'll fill it again and shake it out. And I think it's more satisfying, at least again with my life objectives. When I get to the end and that last breath is being drawn, what I want to feel at that moment, it's so much more fun to have it built on reputation. And I'm not trying to set myself up as a saint. I've got plenty of flaws. If you hunt them down, you find plenty of them. You can trash me easily, but that's at least the goal, is to get there. And it's awesome. I mean, listen to this script. This is how I approach like pre-foreclosures. Like, it's literally like, I will talk to them, whether it's in text or video or me talking to them. It's always like, if I run across one, I'm like, hey, look, I buy houses, but the reality is you don't want to sell me the house because I am your least profitable option. So, if you sell it with an agent without me, you'll make more money. If you need a contractor, if you need an attorney, if you need something, I'll get you the resource. If you don't want to mess with it, I'd love to make an offer. But again, I am your last option. What can I do to help you? What do you need? And I will literally get them an agent or a lender or an attorney. I really mean it. It's not a gimmick. I'm not making it up. I really mean it. And there have been a lot of times I've guided them to a resource, not made a single penny. But at the same time, it's so honest, they can tell it's honest, that a lot of people are like, well, what would you offer? Like, they immediately open up and let me make an offer. And then I'll say, hey, there are other investors that may pay more. I'm more of a conservative guy. I've got risks that I'm more careful about than other people. I also do more work on a home than other investors. So just know you can also get another bid. Like, I'm not transparent. But it's so obvious that people a lot of times are like, oh, okay, like, he's real. And so as a result, that trust, believe it or not, actually gets me, again, I'm not doing it to get the business, but it actually works. It's people appreciate it. So, well,
people do business with people that they like, know, and trust. And if you can get that genuinely through that authentic relationship, that's best case scenario, hands down.
Yeah. So, and it's hard to develop that skill. You got to learn to reach out, and that's the hard part as a beginning investor. You don't get on the phone a lot. And that wasn't my mistake. I wasn't afraid to knock on doors and pick up the phone, but a lot of new investors won't. And that's how you learn how to talk with people. That's how you learn how to, solve their problems. But anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, it's the problems, it's the adversities that we face in this business is how we truly learn, right?
Yeah.
So like the people that are stuck in analysis paralysis is because you haven't taken a step. So you haven't failed yet. You haven't learned. It's the people that are taking the steps that actually fail that then learn and can keep moving forward. So it's like, just take the next right step.
Yeah.
All right. So I know that you don't really do JV deals. Where are you buying properties right now primarily? What's your primary market?
It's pretty close around me. My rentals are in Tennessee, more the South, because right now you can get a lot more dollar for your money to buy in that area. So, but right around me, right? And I don't spend a lot of money on marketing. I really believe, and it's worked well for me, that there are plenty of deals around you if you know how to, number one, understand your market, and number two, if you know how to build that trust I'm talking about. There are a lot of deals all around. So I do them mostly in Arizona. If I find the right deal, I'll do them all over the country. So if the right deal pops up, I'll do it anywhere. But mostly Arizona, buying, fixing, flipping, wholesaling, mostly Northern Arizona, mostly Prescott, Arizona, because I've been doing brand new manufactured homes and been developing that out, and it's a great little area in that spot. But yeah, Arizona's my space for right now. So the home I'm getting is in Williams. You know where Williams is at?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so it's north of Williams. So it's like it's literally in the middle of nowhere. But I don't overlook rural areas, guys. You get to know the rural markets. A lot of people don't play out there, but there's a lot of money to be made out there. So have fun in there. So some spaces, but. I do have to share one error that everybody makes that I made too. Well, maybe you didn't make it, but maybe you two didn't make it. But you get into the business and you immediately start buying a ton of rentals. Did you guys do that?
Okay. No.
Okay. All right. I did. I know a lot of other investors do too, because the idea is you come and you want to build this passive cash flow, right? So you're like, passive cash flow. And I want to be able to retire. So you buy these rentals. And the mistake is you run out of cash really fast. And your rentals, they don't cash flow that well. They just don't. They're great assets because you're paying down the principal and they're appreciating and they're
and depreciation helps.
Yeah. The tax depreciation, the appreciation, the principal pay down, all that stuff means that you're making a huge return on your money, but they don't cash flow, right? So my very first duplex that my wife and I moved into, we actually, house hacked it. And I don't think it cash flowed in 18 years. It just paid for the roof, or it paid for the flooring and the paint and that kind of thing. But when I sold the thing, I had $400,000 to 1031 exchange into my next set of units, in a different state, So, but the mistake was I thought, I'm going to go buy a bunch of units and I'm going to cash flow. No, 30% down. They don't cash flow that great. You run out of cash really fast, like crap. So you gotta create an active income that really produces more than you can spend. Mm-hmm. Then you buy your passive. And then you patiently build up that passive, and it's going to take a bit for that to actually start paying your bills. But I've seen that mistake a lot. And I don't know, maybe people don't make it these days.
No, I think I agree with you. I think many people probably still do make that mistake. But when I started, I didn't have enough money to go buy rental properties anyway. So when I started, my goal was like, okay, let's flip a property. Let's do 2 flips and buy a rental, do 2 flips and buy a rental. We'll just, as we make the money, we'll push it, into the passive side. But I didn't have enough money to start by putting it in rentals.
You started the right way. Good job.
Yeah. Well,
and I just started sorry, go ahead.
No, keep going.
I was just going to say, wholesaling. I got into it kind of like you, where I had to borrow the money to get into a big ticket program and everything. And then I was like, okay, well, the quickest way that I can think of would be to, it's not that I didn't lack the confidence, but the deals that I'm coming across in the market that I'm in, I wasn't seeing the spreads that I liked. I was like, there's no way I'm going to sink all of this, private money or hard money into a deal with a 15 to 20 to 30K spread, because I'm in a lower price point market. So I was like, okay, I'm just going to start wholesaling. So I really didn't get into amassing like this big portfolio of properties right away. We have a couple rentals now. I didn't even get my first rental until I partnered up with Marie with Allura Homes. So yeah.
See, there's a good partnership. You guys did it right.
Yes. Yeah. Well, and it's so funny, Ammon, because I didn't want to interrupt you, but I had been through some terrible partnerships in the beginning of my career where just things didn't work out. And I knew that when Jake and I met, I feel like I put Jake through the ringer. Like, we met with every coach we could meet with. Like, we got everyone's input. We took every personality test. Like, it was one of those, like, I was like, do you have any drug or alcohol addictions that I need to know about? Like, are you a gambler? How's your marriage? Are you going to get divorced anytime in the next 5 years? That's going to mess up our whole business once we build it, because then you're going to be stressed out about the, like, I put Jake through the ringer before we partnered up. I was like, I want to make sure this is going to be good for both of us and our future. So we really did.
It was like 40 hours. Like, I crunched the numbers on it. It was about 40 hours of partnership evaluation through the coaching and systems and everything. But I was super thankful for it, because it was the advice that we kept getting from the coaches that we would meet, is like, have all these discussions and everything. So I'm like, okay, cool. We're really having them all. And I knew that, okay, if we can talk to each other about this hard shit now, then when things blow up, then I know we can have that conversation. I know that we can go back and have the tough conversation now because we had it then. So it was really helpful. I mean, it wasn't like a burden at all.
I'm totally geeking out as you're talking, Maria. I'm like geeking out about, like, what an awesome gal, what an amazing woman. Yeah, you go. I was like, ask more questions. You keep going. I was like totally getting excited. Like, she knows how to do it. She's got it, right? It's no joke.
Well, and it wasn't until, even like one of our calls were with Chad, right?
Yeah.
Jake, and he was like, what's your like previous business experience? And I was like, well, my husband and I owned a pool hall, and plus, real estate stuff and this and that. And then he was like, oh, well, tell me a little bit more about the pool hall. And I was like, why are you interested in my pool hall? Like, we're talking about a, real estate business relationship. But I mean, every experience that you've had up until now gives you experience, gives you insight into something. So it's like, well, did you hire people in that company? Oh yeah, absolutely. Did you manage people in that company? Oh yeah, absolutely. Even in my W-2 job, I was hiring and training and bringing people in, right, growing a group under me. So I'm like, wow, taking it out of context, I really do have so much business experience. And I think it's really interesting. A lot of people, when they get started, especially like to build a real estate company, it's almost like they like walk into a room without the lights on, and they expect, like, they're like, oh, none of my past experience has anything to do this because I'm doing something new. And it's like, no, like, turn the freaking lights on. You have all of this experience and all of this stuff to play off of. Let's utilize it. So yeah, I was like really excited to start with Jake. He had so many qualities that I really wanted and could see us growing together in the future. And I was like, these are some great qualities, right? Great leadership skills. He was in the military. Sergeant Remillard is right behind his head there on the wall, right? Like, I was like, he's going to be a great leader, great, to help manage and build a team together. And I was like, okay, I can see these. And still my New York skeptical attitude was like, we got to check all the boxes. We got to make sure we know what we're getting into. So
yeah, we could go on this for forever, but I didn't notice the sergeant on. How silly! I saw, man, what a cool logo, and of course I should have thought military. Like, might get 0 for observational skills today, but dude, thanks for your service. I love it. I love veterans; they're amazing.
Appreciate it. Really, your support.
You guys don't get near enough honor in our political world these days. You just don't. But yeah, I mean, it really is amazing just how you learn. And here's the thing too, when you get into partnerships and you're doing them right, you're kind of upset if they don't ask you a lot of questions. They're like, you don't know enough about me to really enter this. You can't be committed to me as a partner because you don't know enough about me. Right. And you don't understand how I operate. And a lot of times a partnership doesn't work, not because you don't like the other person, not because they're not trustworthy. It's not because they're like a loser or like they're a great person. They have a lot of skills. You're like, you know what? I don't think we have the same approach. We don't have the same vision. We don't look at it the same way. We handle problems differently. And so you'll interview a lot of people to connect with, and you'll be friends. Like, you'll stay connected, but you'll just agree, hey, this this probably isn't the right match. And so you kind of, there's this false idea that, like I said, that getting to know them is somehow you're judging them, like, morally, oh, you're a bad person, you're a good person. It's not. Are we a good match? I mean, how many people did you date before you get married, right? It's not like you didn't marry them because they were, axe murderers. You're just like, we don't fit, I mean, we don't fit, I mean, you're left-handed. I mean, who wants to marry left-handed? No, I'm just kidding. My wife's left-handed. My wife's left-handed. So,
you gotta know which side to sit on, like next to each other at the dinner table, so you're not popping elbows.
But here's the thing. This is so crazy. I'm deaf in my left ear. So if I want to sit by her and hear her, I have to sit on her left side. I'm right-handed. She's left-handed. So
now you are bumping elbows.
Yeah, all the time. But otherwise I can't hear her. So I'm always, it's like really crazy. I'm like, you know what, whatever. I guess it's the way we flirted for 23 years, but it can be a little annoying sometimes.
It's like playing footsies under the table, Ammon. You were rubbing elbows. I love that.
I'm just a little more, above the table with it,
Yeah, right.
So, but
that.
Yeah, good points. I mean, partnerships and connections are huge, and you have to have them. So I love it. Yeah.
All right. So any last thoughts before we close out this podcast? What would you want our listeners to know about you, your past mistakes? Give us a closing argument, if you will, if we were.
I'm going to give two quick mistakes. We don't have a lot of time to go into, but then I'll give a closing argument. So, but get your accounting right. I started out and I would rob Peter to pay Paul. I'd have this deal going and I'd get another one going and I'd be like, crap, this one's short. And I take money from this deal to put into that deal. And I never got into a problem, but I realized, luckily, really quickly, I was like, if the people who are lending me money saw me doing this, they would be incredibly angry because they didn't lend me money to take care of this deal. They lent me money on this deal. And so I became very incredibly specific about if I borrow money for this deal and this deal is short, money from this deal doesn't go to that deal. It does not. And I go back and borrow money and get more funds. And that's the right way to do it. You ever have 4 or 5 deals where your funds get all messed up and they come together, you're going to look really ugly if you mix those funds. So get your accounting right, get it right from the very beginning. Don't mix those funds. The other thing too is I would delegate by abrogation, which essentially is I'd find somebody to be like, please solve this problem for me, but they weren't qualified. So I dump it on them. That cost me a lot of money.
Give me an example of that.
I was really terrified of dealing with contractors in the beginning. That was probably my hardest part, just dealing with contractors. And so I hired a project manager, right? Okay. Hardworking person. I liked them. They're honest, that kind of thing. But they had no idea how to run a project management team, right? I didn't do enough searching. I didn't do enough asking questions. Great person, not qualified for the job. So jobs weren't going well, and I kind of knew they weren't going well. But I kept saying, well, they're in charge of it. They're in charge of it. Because I was terrified of the problem is what happened.
Gotcha.
And so they dealt with it. And so in the end, we way overpaid contractors. They stole materials. Again, not really the project manager's fault. I own that one. I abrogated my responsibility. I mean, I just kind of kicked it over.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't do the right interviewing, which is a partnership. I didn't ask the right questions and then properly hand it over and then have proper accountability. And because of that, I mean, $60,000 down the drain. It wasn't in losses, but a lot of that was lost profit. A little bit of it was actual losses. But don't just kick something to somebody because you're scared of doing it. You got to face it. You got to look at it. You got to see it. I don't care how terrified you are of it. You can do it. You can conquer it. You just got to be enough present in your mind to say, okay, my emotions are terrifying me of this thing, and I'm not going to let them do that to me. I can conquer this. I can do this, and then go conquer the problem. Don't just kick it to somebody and pretend the problem doesn't exist. That was really expensive.
Yeah, I love that. And as you're saying that, all I'm focusing on is this T-Rex that's about to bite your head off behind you. That would be a big problem to me.
It will.
That's the kind of problem that might scare the crap out of me.
Yeah. Yeah.
I would definitely turn that one over to you, Ammon. Maybe even kick you in the shin so that you just run slower than I do so I can get away faster.
I don't taste good. He'd bite me, and then he'd be like, "Yeah, if the other one tastes like this one, you're good." So it's not a bad strategy. It really isn't. So you're not in bad shorts there. So not a bad path. So
no, I do love that.
Go ahead.
No, I do really love that, and I think that in partnerships, like Sean last week, right? Jake had brought up we teach so much about know your lane, right? And be like, this is my role, this is the other person's role. But one of his mistakes was he didn't question the person in that role. He let them kind of keep going, even though he knew, shit, I don't think they're doing a great job. So that's kind of a little, similar to what you were saying of just like, I'm scared of this, or I don't want this role or responsibility. I'm going to let this person take care of it. And then like, you're aware that they're not doing a great job, but you're still not taking like the responsibility for it and really stepping in. So
yeah,
it's a great lesson.
Yeah. Well, look, I mean, here's the thing I would tell everybody in terms of this. First of all, you don't have to be rich. I mean, all the gurus out there keep telling you, well, you do so much more if you're rich, and you stop living below your means. Look, I'm calling bullshit on 95% of them. They're telling you that so you'll buy their product. Okay.
Right.
Mother Teresa didn't make a penny, and she affected the world in a huge way. Mahatma Gandhi, whether you agree with his politics or not, didn't make a ton of money, changed the world in incredible ways. Jesus Christ, somebody I worship, didn't make a lot of money, changed the world in incredible ways. So when somebody says, man, you got to make more money to be more, just look them right in the eye and say bullshit, right? And just call it for what it is. Now, that being said, I love finance. I love investing. I love what we can do in America. I love the opportunity for growth. I love wealth creation. I really do. So if you're in it, be here because you love it, because there's risk, there's heartache, there's challenge, there's incredible reward. But don't be here because somehow you think that being a stay-at-home mom isn't good enough. It is. Right? Don't be here because somehow being a school teacher isn't good enough. You guys have a hellish life right now. I mean, it is not easy for you, right? But don't be here because somehow it's not good enough to be a school teacher. It is good enough, right? And if you have to live on a frugal dime and live in that house, don't come here because somehow you don't think that's good enough. Be proud of who you are, be proud of what you have. And then from that viewpoint, get into wealth creation, get into self-improvement, but don't get here because you're sick of your job. Be grateful for your job, right? I mean, there are a lot of people across this world that don't have good jobs. So enjoy them. Be grateful for it. And then if you want to move out and do more and make more, great. But here's the reality. My net worth might be greater than somebody who has a job, but I'm not better than they are, right? I'm not a better person because I make more money, right? I enjoy it. I'm passionate about it. And I mean, you could argue I help more people, but even that in most cases is a manipulation to get you to buy something. Reality is you can bless people without money. You can bless people with money, but get into it for the right reasons. And if you're here for the right reasons, you'll make it through the tough spots and you'll grow and you'll become a successful business person. And if you're not here for the right reasons, it can actually take you to bad places. So, value yourself. You got value no matter what you're doing. Live at large, be proud of who you are, and then get into wealth growth for the right reasons.
Love that. I think that's one of the most like genuine closing statements that we've had on the show. I've really enjoyed the episode here and the things that you've shared because you've brought a really unique perspective. We've had a lot of people that have achieved a lot of success through a whole different gamut of means and strategies and everything. But, I just think the down-to-earth approach that you have right from the beginning, you said you knew what you were after. You knew that you weren't, chasing all these other big things right now. You had kind of the life that you had designed intentionally. And that's something that a lot of people are missing, even if they are operating at this high level that, they project out there on social media and they're trying to, it's not keeping up with the Joneses, it's keeping up with the gurus, that they're trying to do out there. And we see so much of it. So I appreciate the authenticity, really. Just thank you.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I love you, Ammon. I've always loved just your approach. You are so down to earth. Anyone can have a conversation with you anywhere. You are just such a genuine, beautiful soul. So I really, really appreciate you taking the time to be on the podcast. And that's it for me. Any final thoughts?
No, just thank you. I love being here. I love sharing real estate. It's fun. And so thank you both for letting me be here. I've had a great time myself too. I've enjoyed talking with you. And likewise, Maria, I love knowing you and Jake. I know, hopefully in the future we'll get a chance to interact more. I feel bad I didn't remember our first interaction, but thank you. Thank you. Yeah. I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay. Well, right. I think that's going to wrap up the episode. Thanks.